Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show. Home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros.
Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show Action Edition, where we are featuring feedback from you, our listeners. And I'm here with my old buddy Larry. Larry, what you been doing lately? Tell us a good story.
So I have a story, and it actually plays to our email that we received. But I have been in the process of redoing this house that I have. It's a rental house, and anyway, I was hooking up the sink. This is a double sink. It's a double bowl sink. You know, the two bowls, like one side and one side, right? So this was a new install. I basically was remodeling the whole kitchen, doing a new install. So I went and bought sink strainers at the big box store, and two sets of pipes, because I've learned through the years that you're better off to buy all that stuff and then take back what you don't use. Because, John, we've all been there, right? That's why we don't really like doing plumbing. Even plumbers have this problem, by the way. We talked, if you look at their trucks, they've got 10,000 fittings, right? So anyway, I'm doing this thing, and I put the sink strainers in, so the sink strainers are the things down at the bottom of the sink, and I didn't put enough plumber's putty around one side of it, right? Because I don't know why, I just didn't. Well, I thought I put enough on there, but when I ran the water, it leaked. So I go to take it off, right? These are just big, basically locking rings that go on these things. And that son of a gun, it freaking locked up. I could not get it off to save my life. Now, I threaded it on by hand. Okay, so just my hands. And I'm not Steve Austin. I don't have a bionic arm, right? I just threaded that. Well, it wouldn't back off to save my life. Absolutely infuriated me. Once again, I had to cut it off with my reciprocating saw, or not my recip saw, I mean my trim saw, to get it off. Thank God for carbon blades to cut metal, right? But drove me crazy. Got it off, right? Finally got it off. Drive back to the big box store. I actually returned the part. I told him it was defective because I believe it actually was defective, because there's no way. I threaded it on by hand. It didn't back off, and I didn't put that much pressure on it. Didn't hit it with a wrench, or didn't hit it with anything else. Just put it hand tight on, and I felt it set in. You could feel the caulk mush. But anyway, be that as it may, that was my experience this week. We did receive an email. This came from Tan Packer. I'm just going to read the email. You guys are awesome. I'm not a handyman, but I am a tinkerer who doesn't have a lot of money to spend, so your advice goes a long way. My question is this. I have Quest pipe. I'm not finding leaks yet. Should I just bite the bullet and swap it out? Thanks, guys, Tan Packer. So we wanted to first off explain what Quest pipe is. Quest pipe is a brand of polybutylene pipe, and it is gray in color, right, John?
Yeah, it's gray. It's gray, and I can give you my advice, if for what it's worth. I have it. I have it in my house, and it was very popular in the late '80s and early '90s. There has been lawsuits on it. As you were saying, it's a gray pipe, and they had a warranty on it, and I think they took it to court. And here's the knock on it, was that it would leak. And mostly what was going on was that I know I've talked to a number of plumbers. Some of them say that that it's the way that the pipe was made actually, and sometimes it could burst. But more often than not, it was incorrectly installed. As it attached one section to another. So if you're with me here, they didn't use the correct fasteners, if you will, to fasten the pipe together with itself. And those things were failing. Okay. Now, I've been in my house for close to 28 28 years. Yeah, 28 years. And I have not had a problem with it. So I think most people will say that, if you don't have a problem with it, you're good. Okay. Some people have a lot of problems. And once again, it goes into the fittings that they use. Now, one of the things that you might want to look at, Tan, if you've got this, is how the pipe is attached to itself from one pipe to the other. The correct way, the way that they finally settled on, was copper. Okay, copper connectors. So if you had to make a 90-degree in it, it would be a copper elbow with two copper clamps that secured the pipe to the copper. Okay. Now, they used to use aluminum, and those things were popping off all the time. That was a problem. And then they actually used a plastic fitting when they first came out, I believe, that was just failing all over the place. So that's my advice. If it hasn't failed, and if you have what I described, is you've got the copper rings on it, then you're probably going. For me, to swap out all the pipes in my house was probably upwards of over 10 grand, maybe more. But I'm not going to do that. So Larry, I know that there's been times there's no good.
Well, every plumbing,
bullet, right?
Every plumbing system has its potential problems, right?
Correct.
Even copper.
Right. Even copper will get holes in it from chlorine, whatever, will start to eat away at things.
Yep.
So, there's no magic bullet, unless stainless steel.
Stainless steel and, fuse it together and
titanium pipe, like you're in some kind of a nuclear facility. But I don't, it's like, no, I don't. You're going to run into these things. Now, it has been replaced with, the other type of plastic pipes now. Namely, one of them is PEX, and I know, Larry, you put that into a house, and it's pretty nice to work with.
It's very nice to work with, and it's exactly the same type of issue. You can have problems with PEX pipe. Generally, it's at the connections, and it's the same thing. They use two different types of connections. One is a stainless steel connector that actually is a clamp that you squeeze with a clamp ring that's stainless, and the other one is a copper ring, just pretty much just like what they used to use with PEX. And the same thing, you take a big crimper and you crimp that thing on there, and if it's done properly, which it's not very difficult to do it properly. I've done it enough. I mean, I've done it enough to know it's quite simple. It's hard physical work because crimping it together can be hard. I do understand why people have power crimpers if you were doing it all day. But anyway, long story short, it goes together great and it works great, and it's at the joints that you have problems. I did want to say one thing about polybutylene. Two things actually about polybutylene. One thing is that there was a lot of polybutylene issues with polybutylene in supply lines to the house. So from your water meter into your house, it's called the supply line. That line tended to have problems when they used polybutylene. I actually had a house that it burst on. It created a beautiful geyser in the front yard. And the reason that it happened had more to do with ground shift, and it would have happened probably with any type of pipe, but it seemed to be that it happened a lot with polybutylene. And that's a great. I was just going to say, Larry, let me jump in. That's a great point, because I'll back you up. That's in my neighborhood of where this stuff has been used. That's where it's been failing. Yeah, and I think so part and parcel, one leads to the other. Part of the thing that we've discussed this on the show before, but one of the things is that street pressure of the water at street pressure is much, much higher than it is in your house, provided, right, John? Provided that you check your PRV valve, or your pressure relief valve, inside your house. And I was going to say, if your pressure relief valve goes bad in your house, your chances of blowing your polybutylene pipes out is greater than it is for other types of piping. I think that has more to do at this point with the age of the pipe. So that pipe is going to be 20 years old at this point, probably, John, maybe older. Yeah. And so when you run, and it also depends on the street pressure of the water coming in. If you've got 120 or 150 pounds of PSI of water coming in, you're probably going to have an issue, but your PRV valve should knock it down to 60, like you're supposed to have in your house. So check. I just had a client too, by the way. Literally had a client call me, and they had a leaking shower faucet, and then she called me about. She said, "Oh, I got it fixed." And I said, "Well, how'd that happen?" And she said, we had a plumber come, and they changed my PRV valve out. And I'm like, the old PRV valve, so pressure relief valve. So that's something. If you don't check it on, we say check it pretty regularly, but polybutylene, you'll have issues with it in that case. Anything else on polybutylene, John?
No. I think once again, to sum it up, if like I described, if it's installed correctly and you have not had a leak, you're probably in good shape. Obviously you look at it and everything, but
keep an eye on it.
Like you said, Larry, the problems that we've had, and you've had one, is that from the supply line, from the street to the house.
Right.
Other than that, I I've been satisfied with it.
There you go. So, folks, don't forget to join our Facebook group at Handyman Pros and join our conversation. Send us an email, questions at handymanprosradioshow.com, or follow us on Twitter at Handyman Radio, and we will talk to you next week. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this podcast and have derived some value from it, here's 4 things you can do. 1, tell your friends about this podcast. 2, hit subscribe on your podcast player. While you're there, leave us a review. 3, subscribe to our newsletter by going to handymanprosradioshow.com and click on the subscribe button. We'll inform you of upcoming events, shows, and give you actionable tips for maintaining your home and property. And 4, send us an email with your questions to questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. That's handymanprosradioshow.com. That's our show for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.